Sophia stood in the shadows behind the Bluebird pub, her breath forming small clouds in the cold night air. She was 20 years old and worked at a hotel 6 days a week, but Sundays were different. On Sundays, she made extra money in her own special way. She wore a short skirt despite the freezing temperature because it was part of her plan. Her hands trembled slightly as she waited, watching the pub entrance with careful eyes. A woman stumbled out of the pub, singing softly to herself with a happy smile. She was around 40, with striking blonde hair that seemed almost too bright to be natural. She wore a long yellow coat and green trousers. Sophia could tell immediately that the woman had been drinking. The woman made her way unsteadily to a black Ford and fumbled with her keys. Sophia pulled out a small bottle of red liquid from her pocket and quickly smeared some on her leg. Then she moved fast, positioning herself behind the Ford just as it began to reverse. Sophia slammed her hand against the car and threw herself to the ground. The car stopped immediately. She put her hand in the fake blood on her leg and smeared more of it on the car's bumper, then began to cry out in pain. The driver, whose name was Dorothy Collins, rushed out looking terrified. When she saw Sophia lying on the ground with what appeared to be blood on her leg, her face turned white with fear. Sophia accused Dorothy of hitting her while drunk. She threatened to call the police, knowing that Dorothy was too frightened to let that happen. Dorothy begged her not to call, offering money instead. After some negotiation, Dorothy handed over £40, and Sophia walked away victorious. It was a simple trick, and it worked perfectly. Over the following weeks, Sophia repeated her scheme at different pubs every Sunday evening. She would wait patiently for drunk drivers, stage accidents, and collect money from people too scared to face the police. Some gave her £40, others gave more. One night, a man with gold teeth gave her £200. Sophia felt clever and successful. On another cold Sunday night, Sophia found a new pub not far from the Bluebird. She waited in her car for over an hour before a man emerged carrying a whiskey bottle. He looked confused and very drunk, stumbling around the car park as if he had forgotten where he parked. Finally, he made his way to a large green Honda, slipping twice on the icy ground. Sophia quickly applied her fake blood and crouched behind his car, ready to execute her familiar plan. But then she heard a voice behind her, shouting her to stop. Sophia turned to see a woman running toward her, and her heart sank when she recognized the yellow coat and blonde hair. It was Dorothy Collins, and she was holding a camera. Dorothy grabbed Sophia's arm firmly and announced loudly that Sophia was a fraud. She explained to the confused drunk man exactly how Sophia's scheme worked. How she pretended to be hit by cars and demanded money from frightened drivers. The drunk man understood and became furious. He pushed Sophia to the ground, and his whiskey bottle fell and shattered next to her, soaking her face and coat with alcohol. He stumbled away angrily to buy more whiskey, leaving Sophia on the ground facing Dorothy. Sophia tried to leave, but Dorothy stopped her, revealing that she had taken photographs of Sophia setting up the fake accident. Sophia demanded to know how Dorothy had found her. Dorothy explained that she had spent weeks visiting different pubs, watching car parks every night until she spotted Sophia again. Then Dorothy surprised Sophia by confessing her own dark past. When Dorothy was just 9 years old, she had blackmailed her babysitters. She would threaten to tell lies to her mother, a famous crime writer, unless the babysitters gave her half their money. Dorothy admitted she had been terrible as a child, but said she had changed as she grew older. She no longer practiced blackmail, but she could recognize a blackmailer when she saw one. She demanded her £40 back. 5 minutes later, Sophia drove away from the pub in her old blue Fiat, burning with anger and humiliation. She felt cheated and furious that her scheme had been exposed. Because she was so angry, she drove much too fast. Her mind raced with thoughts of revenge and frustration, and she barely noticed how dangerously she was speeding. 3 kilometers from the pub, Sophia lost control. Her car skidded off the road and crashed violently into a wall. She felt a terrible pain shoot through her body as her arm and leg broke, and her head struck the car with crushing force. She tried to move but couldn't. She tried to reach her phone, but her broken arm wouldn't respond. She was trapped, helpless, and alone in the wreckage. An hour passed before 2 police officers found her. They called an ambulance immediately, but they weren't sympathetic. As they approached the destroyed car, one officer wrinkled his nose and said he could smell alcohol on her. The other officer shook his head sadly and asked why people drink and drive. Sophia lay there unable to speak, her face pale and her body broken. The fake blood she had used to trick others was now mixed with her own real blood. The money she had stolen meant nothing now. She had spent weeks hurting others for profit, and in one angry moment, she had hurt herself far worse than she had ever hurt anyone else. As the ambulance sirens grew louder in the distance, Sophia closed her eyes, finally understanding that the person she had truly been destroying all along was herself.